If you all knew that the party was for us, you never would have shown up.
Where? She's right. Dr. Arden, Renee's been stabbed.
Days of Our Lives has always been known for pretty outlandish storylines, from baby swaps to the supernatural to love triangles, secret identities. But another storyline or type of storyline that the show has always done is serial killer storylines. The Salem slasher was the storyline that kickstarted a ratings resurgence for Days of Our Lives in the early 1980s. Of course, a big part of that resurgence was the show's super couples, but those could be future topics. Listen, Days of Our Lives has always been my soap opera. It is the soap opera that got me into soap operas. So I wanted to start with some Days of Our Lives storylines. The unfortunate part of doing Days of Our Lives is, unlike future soap operas that I want to cover storylines from, I could actually use clips from those soap operas. But for Days of Our Lives, the clips might get copyrighted. So you're just gonna have to deal with some stills and some sound bites from the show, unfortunately, because the show, Sony or whoever, is very critical with their copyright infringements. But I hope you enjoy part one of covering the Salem slasher. Now, Days had just done a serial killer story with the Salem Strangler storyline, which introduced Roman Brady to the show.
It's Dr. Evans. We're back and going back to our phones. Hello, you're on with Dr. Evans.
I'm disappointed in you.
Why are you disappointed in me?
You haven't helped me at all.
I wish I could make you realize how much I do want to help you. I tell you that every time you call for a few...
You aren't on my side. You're in real trouble. I'll see to that.
You refused police protection? That's tough. You got it, as of now.
Oh, no, I don't.
You know, if you hadn't made such a racket out there, if you'd opened the door right away.
Don't do that. Don't take those things off.
I am staying right here all night.
I think you're crazy.
Well, I've been caught worse things in my life.
Who is that in the sleeping bag?
It looks like Detective Roman Brady to me.
And thus, that started the Roman and Marlena relationship. Two characters that would play a big role in this Salem slasher storyline that we will be talking about. But before we get into the meat of this serial killer storyline, with its many twists and turns, we must give some backstory. Starting with the character of Renee DuMonde DiMera. Renee was the daughter of the show's biggest iconic villain, Stefano DiMera. When she did not know she was the daughter of Stefano at first, she was innocent yet feisty. She got involved with Tony DiMera, who at the time was thought to be the son of Stefano. That, of course, would have meant that Tony and Renee were siblings. But the truth was, Tony's mother, Daphne, was keeping the truth from Tony that Stefano was not his blood father. By the time Renee knew she was a DiMera and Tony was not, so they were not related, Tony had started dating Roman Brady's ex-wife, Anna. While Anna was certainly not innocent herself, it seemed the DiMera blood in Renee was boiling, and she tried to split up Anna and Tony. In trying to rid of Anna, she caused Anna, who was carrying Tony's baby, to have a miscarriage. Once Tony found out Renee's involvement with the incident with Anna, he was done with her completely. Renee continued to spiral, especially once her father Stefano was presumed dead. Now, not that Stefano ever truly died back then. Stefano was always presumed dead a lot in that era. But anyway, at this point in time in the story, Stefano is dead. Renee was pissing off a lot of Salem and was getting lonelier and lonelier because of it. Resident con man Alex Marshall swooped in and romanced her. Alex, of course, had a plan like usual and knew Renee was set to inherit everything from Stefano. Lots of money and lots of property. Renee and Alex got married within a week. A quick aside on Alex Marshall, a very underrated character from this era, always entertaining, played by Quinn Rediker, just great acting and a great character at the time, who was not only comic relief but also a villain. Just a lot of good came from the Alex Marshall character in this era of Days of Our Lives. This was kind of towards the end of Alex Marshall's run on the show. But anyway, back to this storyline.
I don't have very many friends here in Salem. In fact, I don't think I've ever had very many friends my entire life.
So why is Renee's backstory so important to the Salem slasher story? Well, because she was the first victim of the serial killer. Renee threw a big party because she was no longer a part of the struggling working class, but now inheriting all of Stefano's wealth. She was the biggest deal in town, and she wanted to rub it in after being shunned by the town with her change of heart after finding out she was a DiMera. All of the party's attendees were promised the announcement of the year.
Alex and I have been engaged for over a week now. Actually, that's not the entire story. You see, besides being engaged, we are married.
First, she announced her marriage to Alex after just a week. This made Tony visibly upset, which was part of her plan. Even though Alex was usually one step ahead of everyone, Renee announced to Alex and everyone that she discovered his true intention of marrying her for her money, and they would be getting annulled.
Alex, I don't want you anywhere near me. Because you are scum.
Renee then went off on Anna and announced her one true love would always be Tony.
Tony, do you know, you opened up a whole new world for me. You protected me, and you taught me what unconditional love is. I mean, because that's what we had until fate just tore it away from us. And I know lately that you have really accused me of a lot of things, but I want you to know something, Tony. I never tried to kill your baby because I loved you. You know, I can't even say that because I probably will always love you.
Renee ran upstairs in tears. Tony went to check on Renee, and they ended up falling into each other's arms and admitted their love for each other after years. They even made love. Tony went downstairs to get champagne to celebrate, and Alex confronted Renee with Anna eavesdropping. Later during the party, a scream from the DiMera maid could be heard, and Detective Roman Brady went to investigate and found Renee's bloody dead body. She had been stabbed to death.
Kayla called the paramedics.
I don't think we're going to be needing them now. I'm positive she's dead.
Now, of course, this was first set up like a typical whodunit storyline from a soap opera, where a character is going around pissing off everyone, and you have to try and figure out who is she pissing off that really ended up killing her. That's what the story seemed like at first, because Renee had pissed off a lot of people in the weeks leading to her murder. Roman and his partner Abe Carver were of course investigating the murder, and Alex was the main suspect. He had motive to kill Renee if she wanted an annulment, and Anna overheard Alex arguing with Renee before her death. Though you could suspect that Anna herself had a motive in killing Renee after what happened between Anna and Tony. But soon the town would learn that it was not a one-off murder. More victims started to pop up, and the killer was leaving behind a calling card, a black raven feather. The next main suspect was a troubled young gang member named Pete Jennings. Psychiatrist Marlena had been trying to help the troubled Pete, but his erratic behavior was getting worse.
I'm talking about murder in your circle of friends.
How did you know Renee was a friend of mine?
I saw your names on that fancy guest list. You know, as a matter of fact, the Vipers were out at the lake, watching you snobs waltz up in your decked-out clothes.
You were out there by the lake?
Yep. And then the bride got it with the knife. I mean, really. Doesn't make your friends look too swift there, Doc.
How do you know she was killed with a knife?
It was a stabbing, wasn't it? Let's just say I figured it out.
But there could be lots of weapons that are used in a stabbing besides a knife.
Right. But when I hear about a stabbing, scissors aren't the first thing that come to mind.
Could Pete's erratic behavior had gotten bad enough to start murdering people?
But I wonder if I'm being naive. You see, last year in Salem, a lot of women died because I didn't realize that Jake Kosachek was psychotic. And now I have a patient that has a thing about knives. And several women here have been stabbed. And I refuse to believe that my patient could have done that.
Why do you refuse to believe that?
Because the police only have circumstantial evidence. And because I don't think that he could have done it.
Like it would happen many times throughout the 80s, Marlena did not want to believe that Pete was the killer and continued to try to help and get through to him, much to Roman's chagrin, who felt that Pete was dangerous whether he was the serial killer or not.
I had a confrontation with Pete Jennings tonight.
What do you mean by confrontation?
What made this story so good and so popular is a sign of the times. Back in this day, soap operas did umbrella storylines where everyone had their separate storylines, but when big events like this would start happening, they would all kind of start to merge together in what is called an umbrella storyline. And that's certainly what this would eventually become, kind of involving everyone's stories into one main big plot because there's a serial killer going around town. And there's a lot of connections to everyone. One of the victims of the killer was Marlena's cousin Trista.
It's about Trista.
What about her? Is she all right? Has something happened? Is she here?
No, she's not here. Trista is dead.
No. You're mistaken.
Oh, I only wish I were.
Trista? No, Roman, not Trista. No.
Doc, I am really sorry to have to tell you this.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
How?
She was murdered.
Murdered?
I know it's got to be a shock for you. I know how much you loved her.
Who did it?
Doc,
I want to know who did it, Roman. Tell me who did it.
don't know who did it, but I can promise you we'll find out who did, and they'll be punished.
Trista had just married one of Marlena's old patients, and now good friend, Eugene Bradford.
I want you to remember all the times you had with Trista. The happy times.
The wonderful times I had with Trista. Lena, are you all right?
When Eugene's cousin was also a victim of the killer, Eugene found himself in a familiar spot.
Why is Jean wearing handcuffs?
Because they're accusing me of murdering her!
You see, a couple years prior, Eugene was a major suspect when the Salem Strangler was killing people. This is when he was one of Marlena's patients because Eugene certainly could be a mental case. Now, with victims related to Eugene in some way, he was a suspect in the new serial killer case. However, the first big twist in the story was right around the corner. Marlena Evans and Sandy Horton would witness one of the murders by the killer. They walked in on the killer killing Daisy Hawkins, and both would get a good look at the killer.
Oh, here. This is probably Daisy's apartment.
It looked to be Roman Brady himself. Marlena, of course, can't believe it because it is her husband. How could it be Roman Brady? Was Salem's top cop the serial killer the police were trying to track down?
That wasn't Roman. You saw him. That wasn't Roman.